What's up guys, it's Ivan, and on this channel I provide tips, tricks, advice, and strategies for your graduate school applications. So if you are new here, consider subscribing. A couple of weeks ago, I hosted my first Graduate School Application Masterclass, and many of you attended, so I appreciate the support. In this video, I wanted to share a portion of that masterclass where I shared with you all how to select and choose the letter of rec writers for your applications. Okay, so letters of recommendation. So usually they're gonna want you to submit 3 letters of recommendation. Some programs might give you the option of up to 5. So Stanford is an example of that. So you want to know, what do the programs you're applying to value? And that's how you're going to select the people that should write your letters of recommendation. So for example, you can find this information on their website. So if your program values practical experience, then you want to make sure that you ask a employer to talk about your practical experience. If your program values research, then you want to ask professors with a PhD or research mentors to write your letters of recommendation. If your program values community involvement or teaching experience, then you want to find someone who's able to speak about those experiences. And you find that information on the website. So for example, for my PhD program now, the title of my program is Transforming Lives, or what is it called? Transforming Education in a Diverse Society. And on their website, it strictly states, we want to accept people who have experience in the field, whether it's practical from professional experience, whether it's volunteer, whether it's involvement, but we want to accept people who have that experience in education or teaching someone or anything. And so because of that reason, I chose to submit 1 letter of recommendation from my employer at that time. If your program is strictly research theoretical based, then I suggest that you only ask professors with a PhD, research mentors. Don't ask any employers. So in the next point here, usually for PhD programs, because this is a theoretical, degree, you want to provide evidence that you are able to think critically, that you're able to produce, research that is going to impact your field or the community, etc. So if you're applying for PhD programs, you should be asking professors with a PhD. And I emphasize this, with the PhD, because if you're an undergraduate student, for example, some of your first or second year professors, they might be current master's students or PhD students who are teaching the course. And so I wouldn't suggest that you ask those people to write letters of recommendation because as sadly as it sounds, they don't really hold weight. What committees want is people in the field, right, who already conduct the research, who know what it's like to have a PhD, who's gone through the PhD process, and who's able to vouch for you that you're going to be able to get through a PhD. And so you want to ask professors with PhDs or faculty with PhDs, even if they're not professors, they don't teach, if they're like admin or staff who have PhDs, that's who you want to ask. You also want to ask research advisors or mentors. And then a caveat, sometimes employers, and that's the reason why I say that is because in my case, my PhD program emphasized practical experience. And so I asked an employer to write me a letter of rec. For master's programs, you want to ask professors, it can be anybody, extracurricular or volunteer advisors, employers, mentors, research advisors, and etc. These are like the most common ones that I've seen, but most master's programs, especially in education, they call them terminal masters, which means that you are there to gain a certain skill set that you want to apply in a practical field. HGSC is one of those programs. And so in that sense, you want to show that you have, experience working in the field. You want to show that you also can conduct research, that you are able to, read critically, think critically, write critically. And so a master's program is more flexible. Some master's programs are very theoretical based. And the way that you figure this out is if you're writing a master's thesis, that's a theoretical based master's. And then so in that sense, you want to make sure you are asking people that can vouch for your research skills, your analytical skills, etc., which I would focus more on professors and research mentors. When you are asking your potential letter of rec writers for letters of rec, you want to provide them with a packet. This packet should include a statement of purpose draft, your resume and CV, a list of programs with the deadlines, and then you can also include links to your, let's say if you have an online portfolio, let's say you're applying for, I don't know, a music degree, and then you want to showcase that you are able to play violin really well. I don't know. You can send them a link to a video of you performing somewhere, right? So you can provide whatever you need for them to write you a strong letter. You also want to provide them with a description of why you selected them to write you a letter. So pretty much you're kind of writing a mini letter of rec, and you want to include here things like, let's say you're choosing an employer, right? So I would write something like, I don't know, thank you for, dear Dr. blah, blah, blah. I am writing to ask if you can write me a letter of recommendation for graduate school. I'm applying to these programs in this field. I wanted to ask you to write me a letter of recommendation because of our experience working together on leading this campaign at our university. If you recall, we did this, and this. So tell them the steps that you did, to get to run that campaign, right? So you met with different stakeholders. You raised money for fun. You raised money as funding. You recruited people. You ran a team. You managed people. Blah blah blah. Whatever it was, you want to tell the person that you're asking for a letter of rec. Here's what we did, and here's what I want you to focus on in that letter, or at least highlight. Don't forget to highlight this. It's important for me to showcase this side of myself. So if you're thinking about leadership skills that you want to highlight, like tell them specifically, just because they might forget, or they might just gloss over it, or they're getting a lot of people who are asking for letters of rec, and they're just going to give you like a generic letter, and so, or they're going to base it off of your statement of purpose or resume, and maybe you're just like, I don't want them to focus on those aspects of my application. I want them to focus on something different. And so you want to tell them, here's what you should highlight in this letter, and be detailed about it. Don't be afraid to be detailed. Don't think that it's too forward, but also ask it in a nice way. Don't be demanding either. You want to make sure that they highlight what you think is important for them to highlight, and then they'll talk about any other aspect that they feel is a good representation of who you are. But that's a tip that I have for you all there. So I'm going to go back to the letter of recommendation, and I'm actually going to give you an example. I have the letter of rec from one of my HGSC people here. Okay, so this one was from my research mentor. So I'm going to read you like a little snippet of what he wrote that I had asked him to emphasize. So let's see. Okay, so again, I was an undergraduate student at Washington State University in the state of Washington, and I did the summer internship for research at the University of Arizona. So obviously I had to travel over there, right? So prior to me attending this program, my mentor asked me to do something. So he asked me to read a bunch of books and literature on the topic that we were going to read, that we were going to focus on that summer. And so he wrote here, prior to arriving at the UA, University of Arizona, Mr. Valdovinos was already vigorously reading the existing literature on the subject, and this allowed him to hit the ground running when he arrived on campus. This stands in the stark contrast to the experiences of many of my colleagues who also mentor summer students, where getting them to a pre-program preparation is next to impossible. Mr. Valdovinos truly wanted to produce the best research product possible, and he was willing to do whatever that required, even in the short amount of time in a summer program. So in this little example here, it kind of shows again, my passion for education issues, but also that I liked learning, and when you're at the graduate level, you want to learn. That's why you're going, right? And so this little snippet here is showing the committee that I'm really interested and passionate about this subject. And obviously there's more content to it that I'm not sharing, but because of my passion for this topic, and because I wanted to produce this great summer research project, that I read a bunch of literature prior to me going to the program. And so Dr. Cabrera wrote about this in my letter of recommendation that I asked them to be to emphasize that part, because I did a lot of work prior to me even starting the program, which started in June. I did the work in May, and so yeah, so if I didn't tell him to write that in there, I don't know if he would have. But yeah, so that's kind of a little example of why I think it's important for you to tell your letter of rec writer what to write. All right, you guys, so that concludes the video on who should write your letter of recommendations for your graduate school applications. I hope you learned something new in terms of selecting who should write your letters and who should write these strong letters. Let me know if you have any questions down below in the comment section. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.